It's elevation. This is enlisted kidney foundation. From the flight deck to the station, brothers and sisters, we share this fight. One mission, one team, one filter life. We fight for the ones who can't fight no more, for the ones on the deck, for the ones at war. We hold the line, our vow, our right. We stand in the dark, we carry the light. This is enlisted, locked in tight. Kidneys may fall, but we rise and ignite. One fight, one creed, one foundation. Filter life, our liberation.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen and guests. This is the FliterLIFE podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Holmes. I'm a U.S. Navy Special Operations veteran and kidney warrior living with kidney disease linked to toxic chemical exposure during my time in the Navy. On this podcast, we sit down for real, one-on-one conversations with guests from all walks of life, patients, donors, caregivers, advocates, and medical professionals, creating space for people who want to share their story and for those who want to share knowledge to our kidney community. FliterLIFE is about more than kidney disease. It's about how we filter through fear, information, opinions, and uncertainty so we can protect what matters the most, our health, our mindset, and our future. Some of these conversations are going to be raw, some are going to be heavy, and some are going to bring watery eyes along the way. So please use caution if you're listening to this at the gym where you have to explain why you have watery eyes or while driving. But if you're ready for honest connection and real life takeaways, people who've lived this journey, hey, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. And let's filter life together. Welcome to the FliterLIFE podcast. I am your host, Dan Holmes, and today we have a very, very special guest with us today that decided to join the FliterLIFE podcast, who has a very, very unique story, a story that we don't usually highlight, but today we need to highlight this story. I want to welcome to our podcast, Nick Gentile. How you doing today, Nick?
I'm well, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, thank you for being here, brother. Thank you for being here. Now, Nick, you have an amazing story. We're going to get into that. And you've done some things that I haven't heard anybody who's done before, to be honest with you. I've never sat down with somebody who has done the things that we're about to get into about what you've done and how you've done it and why you've done it. It's amazing. I just want to be able to make sure that we highlight your story. Now, Nick, we have a membership, a FliterLIFE membership, where it's over on Patreon, and our Patreon members get to ask us questions. And commonly what we get over there is, how do you live a FliterLIFE? Or what does that word mean to you as you think about it?
For me personally, it's my faith in Christ. And through prayer, fasting, serving other people, being a blessing to whoever I can, and also taking care of my temple, being holistic, mind, body, spirit, or spirit, soul, body. And so that's how I live a filtered life.
Love that, man. I love that. There's so many different distractions out there, right?
Yes.
How do you filter through some of those distractions when you're trying to understand what information is credible and good and useful versus the information that is like, I don't really need to pay a lot of attention to this?
Well, taking your thoughts captive, being careful what you look at, focusing on those things that are trustworthy and beautiful and noteworthy and good. And, it's very hard to do that, especially being on the internet, be on social media, on YouTube, even in the real world. But I just stay focused on the task at hand, what I'm passionate about, what the Lord has called me to do. And I'm also a pastor. So just serving others, being a blessing to whoever I can be, and just being a light to people. So that's really what it is. And just like I said, those things that are not good, that are not healthy to focus on, to meditate on, we should meditate on those things that are good and pure and beautiful. And that's what I do my best to do.
I love that. That's similar to like the function of our kidneys. Like
That's
the
right.
kidneys filter out all that bad
That's right.
influence from the foods that we eat and the things that we drink. And it knows, for some reason, it knows how to keep the good, and it concentrates on the good while it's doing that. And then it's supposed to let the bad go into our urine, into our bladder, and we get rid of that. So that's awesome, man. I definitely appreciate that. Now, Nick, you have a very interesting story, and our followers today probably joined just to hear your story and how amazing this thing is. So tell me a little bit about the beginnings of kidney disease, period, or kidney issues ever in your life. When did that start for you, Nick?
Well, for me, I've never had any health issues, never had any kidney issues. There's no one in my family that's ever had kidney related health issues, thank God.
Okay.
But it was in high school, I first focused on donating blood. I said, when I hit 17, I'm 110 pounds, I'm donating blood. So after that happened, the thought just entered into my mind. I remember I was in science class. It was probably my junior year. And I was thinking, one day I want to donate a kidney. And then years went by, fast forward, that would probably have been 2003. And then fast forward to 2009. I was watching an episode of The Jeffersons, the old TV
Okay.
show,
Yeah,
sitcom.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was the episode where George is asked by his cousin to donate a kidney to him. And so I'm watching that and I was like, you know what? I forgot I said I was going to do that. And then it came back to my remembrance and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. So I started going online, seeing how could I be a living kidney donor? And one thing led to another and I found some forums, and this was in 2009. So January, February 2009, lifetime ago. And I connected with this woman from the UK, and her son, 4 years old, needed a kidney transplant. I said, that's perfect. Not only would I love to help someone, I'd love to help a child. So, things didn't work out. I ended up getting a passport to go over there, but just things never came together. But I didn't give up. I was like, you know what? I was adamant. I was focused. I'm going to donate a kidney. I don't care what it takes.
Now, Nick,
And
let me pause you right there. Let me just pause you because you said some things that our viewers probably like, what? This guy he was a young kid who wanted to donate blood and one day woke up, I want to donate a kidney. Now, what influence, Nick? I'm trying to look at the influence when you were young that made you want to go hop in the big red bus and donate the blood. What was there a family member that may have been, or was there a friend? Where did it go where you were like, I can actually live with one kidney. I want to give away my other one. When did that happen, or how did that happen for you?
I just always like to help people. So I didn't have faith at the time. I just wanted to help someone in need. It was to show the love of God, to be a servant, do unto others as I would have them do unto me, and just be a blessing to someone. So that was the motivating factor. But before that, it was just helping someone in need. So, yep,
Wow.
that's
Wow.
really the
Nick,
foundation. Yeah.
it's so hard, right? To just find honest people in the world that don't have alternative motives. You can't get money for a kidney, and there's no money to get if you decide that one day I'm going to donate a kidney. There's a lot of different things, and we talk about this pretty often, and I talk about this publicly as well, where there's a lot of services we can provide. Right, we can provide services. We can join the military like I chose to do. Right, and we
Right,
can serve our country, and when I'm
right.
compensated for that. Right, even after I get out of the military, maybe I got kidney disease now, and we're helping people get compensated for those ailments. But there's
Yes,
compensation usually for these good faith gestures. You give blood, you can usually get compensation. You give plasma and sperm and donate eggs and donate all these different things. But there's nothing if you donate a kidney. There's I don't necessarily agree with the fact that there's nothing, but there is nothing. So what it does is it just goes to show the humanity of a person when they decide that they're going to give an altruistic kidney donation. Now, you said in 19 was your decision to donate the left kidney. Is that correct? In 2019?
well, it was 2009 is when I started the process.
2009. Gotcha. 9.
Yeah. And it culminated in 2019, and it wasn't my choice. We can get into that maybe down a little bit later, but they just
Sure.
when you donate a kidney, they choose the weaker of the two kidneys. So the hospital chose the left kidney because it was the weaker of the two kidneys. So that
Okay.
you're left with the stronger of the two kidneys to avert the risk or mitigate the possibility or minimize the possibility of you needing a kidney transplant in the future.
Now, when you made the decision to donate altruistically, which means basically I'm going to give my kidney to the next available able body.
Yep. Whether not knowing them, yep, yep.
What was that process like?
It was
You made the decision to do it. What was the process like?
very long, a lot of discouragement at times, very disappointing because it was like doors would appear to open, and just as quickly as they opened, they slammed shut in my face.
Give me an
It got
example.
to the So, I would connect with I found a website called matchingdonors.com, I believe is the name of it.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
both those in need of a kidney, potential recipients, and donors can post profiles. It's like a dating website, right? It's a matched website. So you can put up a profile and people can contact you. Recipients can contact donors, donors can contact recipients, and you guys can connect. And if you're a donor, they have the hospital information, like their kidney donor information, the kidney donor coordinator information. You can call them and you can get the process started. So I connected with a lot of people. Either they contacted me or I contacted them through that website. And, I'd reach out to the hospital and then things would fall through for one reason or another. I'd fill out a questionnaire and the kidney coordinator or the hospital staff, the nephrology staff, they just weren't sold on me or they didn't want to move forward with me. I would have blood drawn at a lab in my area and I would have it UPS to them or however FedEx or however the lab sent it. And even though everything from my end was fine, I'm completely healthy, just wouldn't work out. And so that just kept happening where I'd connect with coordinators and they, I'd leave a message or I'd talk to them and they're supposed to get back to me and they wouldn't get back to me. They wouldn't follow through. And so it was just one thing after another. Or, you know, I connect with people and then they would get a kidney some other way, right?
Right.
They'd connect with
Right.
someone else and it worked out with that person, but it didn't work out with me. So it became extremely discouraging. Now, my faith sustained me because I kept my
Okay.
eyes on the prize. I was
There you
like, I
go.
believe this is God's will for me to do. I'm not going to give up. I don't care.
Okay.
I did take a short break in 2017 so I could get health insurance because that increased my chances to be able to donate because that was somewhat of an obstacle. When I would connect with a hospital and I talked to a kidney coordinator for the person I wanted to help, they'd say, "Do you have health insurance?" And I'd say no. And they'd say either they would say, "Well, you can't move forward," or "It's preferable." And it'll
Got
increase
it.
your chances of donating in case something happens to you. Right.
So you hear
So
that?
they're
You
trying
hear
to
that,
minimize.
people, listeners? I hope the listeners hear that. You get a better chance if you have health insurance.
Yes. And so I got it
Okay.
in 2017 and that helped me. And shortly after that, so it was in 2017 though, things changed. So there was a woman from Maryland who reached out to me. Her name's Trina. We're still friends to this day. Contacted me through the website matchingdonors.com. And we connected. We're both believers. I don't care what a person's belief system. I'll help anyone in need. The first person I connected with, that woman, was a Muslim. I don't care about that. But we just happened to connect based on our faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were some other people in the picture at the time because I had connected with other people. And, there were other people that were ahead of her. But I said, if it doesn't work out with them based on my history, I'm happy to reconnect with you. Let's stay in touch in case things change. Right now, there are other people that I'm working on getting tested for. But if things change, I'll let you know. Well, there was one gentleman from California, older gentleman, need of a kidney transplant, gets in touch with me. We became friends. And what the issue with him is there was no lab in my area to have blood drawn to be sent to. He was a patient at two different hospitals, one in California, one in Hawaii. And so we tried, and the closest lab was over 100 miles away, and
Wow.
it just didn't work out. And so we went our separate ways. Unfortunately, he was in his 70s. He'd lived a long life. He was a retired attorney. And I was like, you know what? I feel led to move on because I've done the best I can. It's just not working. No doors are opening. And I have this woman who's younger, who has not lived as full a life, who I have a better opportunity to help. And so through prayer, I made that decision to move forward instead of continue kind of beating my head against the wall and trying to figure out a way to get tested. Just have the blood drawn, which is that first step you have to take. Unless they have you come into a facility, you come into the hospital where they're a patient at and get tested. And so let me go back real quick. I'm sorry. Back in 2011, I connected with someone from New Jersey. I'm in upstate New York. I'm in Rochester, New York. And so I ended up traveling back and forth to a hospital in New York City and getting
Mm.
tested. Psychiatric
Okay.
evaluation, what held me up and where I got tested for a while there, even though I went back and forth to the hospital, was the urinalysis test, where you have to collect urine and submit the urine sample to make sure your creatinine levels and your kidney protein levels are healthy and other things as well. So I did that like 3 or 4 times, right? So I went there and April of 2011 was the first time I went there. And everything checked out except for the urine test, the urinalysis. And it's like, okay, we're good on everything else, but you got to do this. You got to collect the urine, you got to send it. So I came back, I'm about 300 miles away from New York, and I did the urine collection, I believe, 3 additional times, and it worked the final time. The last time I collected it, I made some health changes. I was taking a supplement that made me retain water. And so, like, I did it the 2 more times, and the kidney coordinator said, okay, we're going to give you one more chance because we know everything else Everything else checks out except for this. But if you fail this, not only will you not be able to donate a kidney, but you may have an issue with your kidneys. So I just tweaked my diet and I removed that supplement and everything was good. And I was
Now,
excited.
did they ever give you any indication, right? I wanna focus real quick here because what you said was really important, and I feel like our viewers or our listeners may be trying to figure out if they wanted to donate a kidney, right? What we've heard so far is that Nick's process has been a little difficult. It was a little upfront, a little discouraging because you couldn't find a match, and then you were kind of forced to like triage people yourself, which is kind of weird, right? You kind of didn't know when to like pull away from a guy. At what point do I like move on to the next person that needs to do, like, that's a very different process than most people experience that are looking to donate a kidney. So I wanted to, number one, just put that out there, that is a rare, this is why we're sharing the story, because it's rare. It's not the usual. It's not the norm, but these things can happen. And we want to, what's most important about your story, Nick, is you got smacked in the face trying to do a really good deed, right, in 2009, and it took you 10 years of just getting slapped and triaged and moving around and just trying to give up this organ. Like, you're a good person, Nick. You're good. You're a great. You're a great person, man. Trying to get all those kind of things done for somebody, and the stress that kind of I can only imagine that you were going through trying to figure out, like, hey, man, this guy's like 70. I've tried everything I can. I don't really know. So for our listeners, Nick, I want you to tell me a little bit about what are they looking for? They say they go test your blood. They got to test your pee. They're testing your psyche to make sure you're mentally stable enough to go through missing an organ. What are they testing for? Can you give our viewer or listener just a little bit of a insight of what they're testing and looking for?
So when it comes to a lot of hospitals, they'll have you submit a blood sample first before you even go to the hospital. Other hospitals will have you travel to the hospital and submit a blood sample that way. So if you don't get past that, if for instance, you have to FedEx it to them, or you have it drawn at a lab and they FedEx it to them, okay? Or you go to a hospital and they FedEx it to them. I've had it done both ways. If things don't check out that way, you don't move any further in the process, right?
Do you know what they're looking for as far as checkout?
Yeah, they're looking for like antigens, they're looking for blood type compatibility, they're looking for all kinds of stuff.
Perfect. Okay.
Mainly, they're going to know right off the bat once you fill out the questionnaire. So it starts with the questionnaire, then it would go, you either go to the hospital and you have all the testing done at one time, except for the psychiatric evaluation, which comes on another date. So you'd have your blood drawn, you go through a CAT scan, you'd have your kidneys x-rayed, the whole 9 yards. Every test you can imagine you have done, right? They have to test you with a fine-tooth comb. They have to make sure you're healthy enough. They have to make sure that they have to mitigate as much risk as possible, in
Yeah.
case something happens. It's a very rigorous testing process. Every hospital I've gone to, that's the way it's been. And I've gone to 2 different hospitals, and I'll get into that when it comes to my kidney, and one with the liver, which that comes after. But that's been the process. And so they have to make sure you're compatible. But for that woman that I mentioned before, and we'll get back to, she was all I'm A positive. So we knew right off the bat I could not donate to her directly.
Right off
So
the
then
bat. Right.
the whole paired kidney exchange, which I'll talk about, which is a very, very powerful program.
I love the program.
So, but what happened in 2011 was, to me, so I submit that final urine sample, and they say, okay, everything's good, but now we're going to meet. So the surgeons, the anesthesiologist, the nephrologist, the social worker, the kidney coordinator, are all going to meet. They're going to have a consultation and determine if I'm the right person to move forward. And not too long after the kidney coordinator told me that, I get a call and they say, everything checks out physically, but based on your age, I was 25 at the time, and the fact I didn't have health insurance. See, that's where this comes in. And the fact that you don't have health insurance, we're going to move forward without you. And what frustrated me is they knew in advance that my health insurance, when I started the testing process, was going to end, because I was under my dad's insurance at the time, was going to end soon. And they knew how old I was at the beginning of the process. And they still had me go through all that just to say, you know what, we're not moving forward with you. After all of that, and after I felt like giving that family false hope. And again, I connected with them through matchingdonors.com as well. And so it was the sister of the man that needed a kidney. And thank God he ended up getting a kidney later on because I stayed in touch with them. But it's like I was so frustrated. I spoke to the kidney coordinator. I spoke to the social worker. I said, is there anything that can be done? I said, you guys knew how old I was at the beginning of the process. You knew my insurance was going to end, and you still had me do all of this. We're talking about between May, when all of this really started. I went there in April, and then it was May when I started sending the urine to New York. And the last time, I believe it was the last time, I brought the urine on the bus. I had it packed in ice in a cooler to the hospital. And finally, it was good. But even after all of that, they said, no, we're not going to move forward with you. You're not the right candidate. And so
So I
that's what I
just want
mean
to
by frustration. I was even looking to take legal action. I felt like they gave me the runaround. They gave that poor family false hope. When you knew in advance these were my statistics, or these were my measurables, or whatever you want to say, and then what do? It's like you pulled the rug out from underneath us. So I was upset about it, but I trusted God, continued to move forward. But now fast forward back to 2017. There are other people I connected with, but again, it just didn't work out with those people. So 2017, I reconnect with that woman, Trina, in terms of being willing to move forward and getting tested for her. So I started here in my city of Rochester, New York, at Strong Memorial Hospital. I had the blood drawn here, and everything was, and she was listed at multiple hospitals. So for those who are not aware, if you're a recipient, you can get tested and you can be listed at multiple facilities, medical facilities or hospitals. She was listed at Johns Hopkins, at Temple University in Philadelphia, and at Georgetown University Hospital. I believe one more. And so when I started getting tested for her, I was focused on, and she was mainly, her focus was on going through Temple University Hospital in Philadelphia. So I sent the blood there, everything checked out. That was in October of 2017. Fast forward to January 2018, and I go there for all the testing that needed to be done except for the psychiatric evaluation. So I get there, and things are unorganized. It's like they didn't know what they were doing. They were late, with the blood draw. I had to have additional blood drawn. When you're a kidney donor, you have tons of blood drawn. They draw blood, vial after vial after vial of blood. It isn't just done once you send in that initial amount of blood. When you go to the hospital, they're going to draw blood many times. It's just how it goes. They want to make sure you're as healthy as possible up to the point you have the surgery. So they drew the blood, but they were late doing that, and they weren't organized, and they actually dismissed me early because an ice storm came in, but it really wasn't. I'm from upstate New York. To me, that was nothing. And I'm like,
right.
I traveled all this way to go through all this testing, and you don't even finish the testing, and you want me to come back to the hospital at a later date to finish the physical testing. X-rays, a CAT scan, and this and this and this, all the stuff that I had done. And then they said, okay, you'll come back to the hospital and you'll finish the testing, and then we'll facilitate the psychiatric evaluation. Well, that never happened. The kidney coordinator kept giving me the runaround. I would call, leave messages. She wouldn't call back. And it went on for months, bro. Months of this.
How did the recipient, you guys were in contact with the
We were in
recipient, right?
contact.
You were?
She was so frustrated, but the recipient maybe the recipient team can, but the recipient can't communicate with the donor's team, and the donor can't
Right.
communicate with the recipient. So it's just like, well, I could communicate with her kidney coordinator, for instance, but no one else. But she could
Right.
not reach out on my end. She just couldn't do that. So it was very frustrating from her perspective. She felt powerless. I couldn't make any more progress. I couldn't move forward because the kidney coordinator kept giving me the runaround, so I couldn't go to the hospital and finish the testing and then move on the physical testing and move on to the psychiatric evaluation. So we just jointly made the mutual decision to move on and focus on Georgetown, who she was also listed as a patient at. So we did that, and so they had to have been 3 months between January and April where I tried to get in touch with the kidney coordinator, and then we changed direction, and I started communicating when I connected with Georgetown, and things sped up very fast. So with them, I ended up traveling to the hospital in August of 2018, getting all the physical testing done, the blood draw, the whole 9 yards, and everything checked out. But, I had to do the psychiatric evaluation, but the psychiatrist was not available to do the psychiatric evaluation to facilitate it until December of 2018. So you talk about waiting 4 more months to receive that. So I traveled back. Now, again, Georgetown is in DC. So I traveled back to DC just for the psychiatric evaluation. The psychiatrist was intrigued by my faith and was asking me questions about being a Christian, what that means. And I was surprised by that because I had been submitted to 3 or 4 psychiatric evaluations at different hospitals, including one in my area. No one ever asked me about what it meant to be a Christian. They kind of looked at that in a negative way. You know, the psychiatrist, like, is he
Okay.
mentally sound? Is he doing this for? Because they want to make sure you're of a sound mind, not just a sound body, but of a sound mind. They want to make sure you understand the ramifications, the potential risks, and things of that nature. And if faith is involved, they may think, well, he's not rational, right? But I passed every psychiatric evaluation that I did. So this was the only person that was intrigued about my faith. But it went very well. Everything checked out. And finally, a couple weeks later, I got approved in December of 2018 to be paired with her in the paired kidney exchange program,
Perfect.
which is where I would be paired with her. They look for another pair, and I would donate to the donor, to the recipient in the other group, and the donor from the other group would donate to Trina, who I was matched up with.
Now, let me ask you a question, Nick. The paired donor. Before we get into the paired donor program, you said a whole lot of things that I want to
Lot of
recap
stuff.
for our listener. Right, we're highlighting your story, Nick, and we're letting people know some of these struggles that you may have to go through as a donor, because those who are listening who are waiting for a kidney, right, who have the kidney disease, maybe you're sitting in the chair right now at dialysis and you're like, how come I can't get a kidney? Or I've been on the list for this many years. And on the other side of it, you know, on the person who wants to give a kidney, Nick has been wanting to try and donate an organ since he was a little kid, and he wants to do this, but yet there's these roadblocks and bureaucratic red tape that he can't get past. And you know, there's a lot of sensitive things when we're trying to figure out whether an organ's going to work in your body. And for a kidney patient who's wanting a kidney just to stay alive, that's all we have one wish, right? We have one wish is, I just want a kidney. Sometimes most of them don't even care about the kidney. Don't care where it comes from. They'll take a pig kidney, an artificial AI kidney. They'll take a printed kidney. People don't care at this point because the list is getting longer and longer and longer, because we're finding out more and more of our population is having kidney disease, and there's no cure for the kidney disease. So again, dialysis is a treatment. Transplant is a treatment. There is no cure for kidney disease. So for the patient that's at home or in the dialysis chair who's listening to our podcast today, I don't want you to lose hope, but I just want you to understand that there is some bureaucratic red tape, and it's okay to talk about that because it's the only way. If you're a doctor, if you're a transplant coordinator, if you follow the Enlisted Kidney Foundation and you're a social worker at a dialysis center, these are the things you need to think about before you send your patient down the road to do all this testing that they may not even qualify for because their BMI is too high. And you knew that before you sent them through all the false hope. So again, we learned from Nick's story. Nick is sharing his story so that way people out there that are listening can make effective change. They can think about these roadblocks and think about what they're doing to the patient and the donor, the person who's just, all I want to do is a good deed, and you're making it so difficult.
Very difficult.
Now,
like you said,
you ultimately were able, Nick, I want to fast forward a little bit. You were ultimately able to donate your kidney.
Yes.
And that was successful. Now, fast forward a little bit after that. There was another thing you decided that after I gave up a kidney, you still had a calling. What was that?
Well, before I donated my kidney, a friend of mine who was in need of, so it didn't work out with Trina. She ended up getting kidney another way. I connected with someone else that didn't work out, but I still had the option because I was approved to go to Georgetown and donate directly. So that's what happened. That got set up, and in July of 2019, after 10 and a half years, I finally donated. After I was scheduled to donate my kidney, this was in early July of 2019, I found out that my friend who had liver disease for 10 years and was now on the transplant list to receive a new liver. But I was already scheduled to donate my kidney. And so I said, if this time next year, it would take a year before I would be eligible to get tested in case he needed a liver transplant, still needed a liver transplant. I said, this time next year, if everything goes well by the grace of God, I will be happy. If you don't have a donor, if you haven't received a liver transplant, I'll be happy to get tested for you. So everything was good. You know, I donate, everything checks out. And I just want to say this real quick. I was actually paired with this woman. I ended up It's the kidney voucher program. So when I donated a kidney, there was a woman that I ended up securing a voucher for, so that she went right to the top of the transplant list after I donated. And 4 months later, in December, she got a kidney. So it was kind of like her kidney exchange, but there's a difference in time.
Like a
So that
golden
happened.
ticket. It's the
The
Willy
golden
Wonka
ticket
golden
went
ticket.
right to the top in 4 months. After waiting for like 2 years, she got a kidney. So praise God for that. Anyways, fast forward a year, I check out. I have my 1 year examination evaluation, which I did, not a physical evaluation, but via Zoom because of COVID and all that. So everything checked out, and it was after I donated my kidney, it was crazy, the pain and all that. That's another thing we could talk about that I do want to, at the end, at least give people some pointers on what they could do to kind of mitigate what I
Absolutely.
dealt with.
Yeah, absolutely.
But okay, so my friend who needed the liver transplant still had not found a living donor, right? People got tested and it just didn't work out. His brother was close to donating to him, but they found out he had hepatitis B. Hepatitis B, hepatitis C. So he was disqualified. Now,
Immediately. Yep.
so he had, like I said, liver disease for 10 years, and he was in horrible shape. He was on the precipice of death. He was that close to dying. And so again, now this took place in my city. Everything took place in my city. I'd have to travel outside to another city, another state. And so it was through Strong Memorial Hospital, who he was a patient at. And it took some time. Again, I was kind of getting the runaround from his liver coordinator, transplant coordinator. But finally, I connected with her. And in October, I started the testing process. And then I was approved, and I donated to him 70% of my liver on November 12th of 2020. And it regenerated in about 7 or 8 months. So it fully
Wow.
regenerated. So by the summer, it fully regenerated. But I have about 90% functionality.
Okay.
The liver is probably arguably the third most important organ, and is like 500 different functions. A lot, most people I think have heard of kidney donations or kidney transplant, but not so much liver. And being a living liver donor, which was not my
Living
focus.
liver. Yeah.
Donor. That was not my focus until my friend was put on the transplant list. And like I said, I was already scheduled to donate my kidney at Georgetown, and I went there, and I was there for 2 weeks and rehabbing and everything. But when I saw the opportunity to help him, I took advantage of it, because that's how I live my life. And I just thank God for the opportunity to help him and help the person. Now, I reached out to that person through the hospital, the person I donated the kidney to altruistically, and I sent them a letter. They didn't want to connect with me, which is fine. I didn't do it to get credit or a pat on the back. I was a little disappointed, because it would have been nice to meet that person.
And no, and you had that personal relationship with all these people for 10 years. You know what I
Right.
mean? You were connecting
Right.
with all these people. I could see the need of wanting to connect with the person finally that you're going to give a kidney to, and not just, but
I want to say my story is very atypical. I don't want people to listen to this if you are thinking about donating a kidney or liver, or you're a recipient, and think this is the typical process. It's not. This was very, very atypical. And if you compare the process it took, the time it took for me to donate my kidney and liver, it was night and day, right? Kidney took 10 and a half years. The liver, it took about 4 months from the time I started reaching out to the coordinator. So it is very atypical. I don't want you to be discouraged. I knew that this was God's will for my life, and that I was called to persevere until it happened, and that's what happened. And my faith sustained me, So that's
love
what I
that.
want
I
to
love
encourage.
that.
I don't want people to give up, but I want you to be encouraged that this is not a typical story. This was my journey. I had to go through that, and it strengthened my faith. And see, now, because of how different the story is, I'm on the show and I'm talking about it. And I'm able to tell you, I wouldn't change anything in retrospect, but I also want to tell you it's not typical. So don't get discouraged when you hear, be encouraged, please.
What I also take from your story, Nick, is that it's difficult on both ends. It's hard to give a kidney. It's hard to get a kidney. And there's a lot of different things that you need to filter through.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of
Yes.
things through your life that you need to filter through to be able to get that done. It's not just the coordination. It's not just the team. It's not just the communication. It's not just the blood, the urine, the thing. So there's a common misconception in the kidney world that I've experienced, where most people are like, yeah, well, I don't have kidney disease right now. Or maybe I got stage 1, stage 2, but I got a friend that will donate. And he said if it ever gets down to that, he'll just donate and it'll be fine. And I want people to understand that that's not how the process works. Nick's
Right.
story highlights so much of why that is not how it works. You know what I mean? There are easier ways to get it done, but it still took him 4 months. It still took him labs. It still took questions. It still took a lot of work to prep Nick to be able to donate his liver, let alone qualify him on the recipient side of things. That guy who's getting the liver has to be in healthy condition, has to have his enzymes and his blood and all that. His testing's got to be both ways. And people don't understand that. So if you're thinking that you may have just been diagnosed with CKD or kidney disease and you're look, man, stage 3 is when we start talking about kidney donation and finding a living donor, because once you go stage 4, stage 5, it makes it so much harder because you're sick at that point. You don't feel good. The weight starts stacking on all the different things that would eliminate you from being a recipient, a qualified recipient. Those things start to happen around stage 4, stage 5, let alone let yourself get on dialysis. Now, we don't always get to control when we get sick. Our kidneys, we don't just, we crash into as a patient, Nick, I know you're not a patient, but as a patient of a kidney disease, we usually end up needing a kidney, not knowing. It's
Right.
may have been something that's progressive. Kidney disease is very progressive if you're paying attention to it, but the majority of the people and doctors and our medical systems aren't set up for us to pay that much attention to our kidney functions and how they're working. So, by time they fail, man, we just are so sick that it's emergency dialysis, and then your life got flipped upside down. And the first thing they want to know is, how do I get a new kidney, right? And it's like, well, you got people on the other side of that, like Nick, who are trying to get you a kidney. They're trying to do everything that they can. And we understand that you as a patient may have done everything your people told you to do as well. You followed all the things, you're staying healthy, you're doing the dialysis, you're not getting the water up too high, you're changed your diet, keep doing it. I want the motivation to be there. Just keep doing it, because Nick eventually, through his grace and God, he was able to donate his kidney and then even turn around and donate 70% of his liver, saved 2 lives with 1 body. And Nick is still here today, walking around. Nick, how was it after these donations? Are you stuck in the bed or?
No, I'm stronger than ever before. I'm stronger. I put on a lot of weight. I'm like 180. Before I used to be really skinny, and now I'm like 180, filled out. I wasn't skin and bones, but I was always a thin guy. Now I'm more filled out, and I'm healthier than I was before. I'm stronger than I was before. And, you're warned, or you are made aware of the potential risks, short-term and long-term. But what they tell you is that if you're healthy enough to donate, as long as you continue that healthy lifestyle after the fact, there's a very rare chance you're going to develop either kidney or liver disease and need a transplant. And with kidney disease, as a kidney donor, the risk is more down the road than short term. It's more long term than short term. And as a liver donor, it's more short term than long term. The potential
That's
risk
important.
that could develop.
That's important to know. Okay, that's good to know.
But and so as long as you take care of yourself, if you're healthy enough to donate, the chances of you developing either liver or kidney disease is slim to none if you take care of yourself after, unless something unexpected, unanticipated, dramatic takes place. But when you donate, if you end up needing a transplant down the road, you go to the top of the list. That's the way the system is. Not that that's optimal in the grand scheme of things, but it is optimal if you develop kidney or liver disease. You want to be at the top list. But I'm telling you, and I know plenty of other people who are living with 1 kidney, perfectly healthy. You have more than enough kidney function with 1 healthy kidney.
Yeah, I meet them every day, man. I meet people all the time that have 1 kidney, and they are climbing mountains, and they're doing everything they're supposed to be. They do everything they could do before they donated a kidney. They just had this little bit of surgery time that they had to take and recover and all that kind of stuff, which, you're giving up an organ. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a flu shot, right? You're giving an organ to somebody, man. You're saving somebody's life. There's going to be some sacrifice there. Now, you turned your story, you turned your pain and all the ailments that you went through into purpose, and you decided to advocate, and you something changed in you, right? Where you were, after I want to donate. Now I've run out of things to donate. Now I want to advocate for others, and I want to get the word out there. Tell me a little bit about that change and how that took place.
Yeah, I saw the great need that was out there for living kidney donors to people to come forward and donate as a living donor, because a living donor kidney lasts longer than a cadaver donor kidney does. A cadaver kidney will last on average like 8 to 10 years. A living donor kidney can last up to 20 years or more on average.
Wow.
So, it's the living kidney is much more preferable than the cadaver kidney. I saw that. I saw all the people. I connected with a lot of people, and even on that website, matchingdonors.com, I saw the people who were in need of a kidney donation, of a kidney transplant. So I was like, you know what? I want to do more. I want to do more than that. I want to do more than be a donor. I wanted to make a greater difference. So I started an organization called Compassion Match, and to promote living organ donation, public education, advocacy, disease prevention, and connecting future kidney and liver recipients with potential living donors like myself. And that's the greatest passion I have, is connect donors and recipients. Promote living
I
kidney
love that.
donation, because there's a lot of people that I've connected with. When I say I'm a kidney donor, they don't understand what I'm talking about. They think, oh, you marked it on the back of your license, and that's what he's. And then if they're interested, I'll expound on, well, what do you mean by that? I'll say, well, I've actually donated one of my kidneys and 70% of my liver, and then explain the liver regenerates, it's the organ that regenerates. So, yeah, so it's like, and I've been able, as a result of that, I've interviewed a bunch of potential recipients, and many of them have received a kidney transplant. Unfortunately, a couple did pass away, but most of them, so, I mean, this is a life or death situation, folks. For those
Yeah,
who don't have
absolutely.
kidney disease, don't have kidney disease, or don't have liver disease, if they don't receive a kidney transplant, a person's going to die, right? Because there is no cure, and they can't be on dialysis forever. So there is a pressing need for people who are healthy enough to step forward and get tested. You never know unless you go forward and get tested. So if you go to
Nick,
matching donors, yeah, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
If you
No, go
go to
ahead. Go ahead.
Go to matchingdonors.com, or you search on Facebook, or you go to the National Kidney Donation Organization, NKDO. You go there, you go to all these places. You can start the process if you're interested. And I would encourage you to take that first step. You can go on Facebook, though. You can look for people who need a kidney transplant. You'll see a bunch of pages that have been established for people who need a kidney transplant. You can connect with me. I don't know if it's okay if I share like an email address or something, but it's ngentile@yahoo.com. You can connect me that way, and I can get you started on the process. Or go to Compassion Match on Facebook. I used to have a website. It's not active anymore, but go to Compassion Match on Facebook, and you can connect with me that way. And I can help you get started on this process, because we need as many healthy people as possible to come forward to at least get tested. And you
Now,
never know.
Nick, we are a national organization, so I'm glad you brought up NKDO and the National Kidney Donors Organization, because I've talked to that organization as well, and we work closely together. Patients you can get with us. We have a lot of resources in a lot of different areas. Worked with a lot of different organizations that support our mission, support what we do. We also work with other mentoring organizations, right? Organizations like Kidney Solutions and Kidney Forward. And these organizations are nonprofits that go out and they mentor you like Nick is offering to do. But these organizations mentor you through the process, coach you through it, let you know what you're going to expect. They help you so that way you don't experience a lot of these negative experiences that Nick's telling us about that he had to go through. There are hurdles. There are bureaucratic red tape. And you're going to need help going through that, whether you're on the donor side or the recipient side. You're going to need help filtering that information. And
Absolutely.
Nick is there, the Enlisted Kidney Foundation. We're here for you. We have organization behind us, and that's what we do. Now, Nick, I'll ask you this. How did you find the Enlisted Kidney Foundation? Where did you find us, and how did you stumble across us? And why did you decide to do this interview today?
On Facebook, I found you guys, and I'm so happy I did. And I love that you're helping veterans, and you're helping, you're helping citizens, you're helping the both veterans and non-veterans. That's civilians. That's awesome what you're doing. And I have a number of family members, including my oldest brother who's in the military, who's in the Army. I have cousins and my grandparents, my grandfathers, they served in the Air Force and the Army, cousins who served in the Marines. So love the veterans. And anything that has to do with promoting living kidney or living organ donation, I support it.
Man,
And
thank you
helping
for that.
recipients, man, because I believe everyone's made in the likeness and image of God. Everyone has the same intrinsic worth and value, and everyone, we should do unto others as we would want them to do unto us. And that was the main driving force behind why I did. And I just look at it like this: put yourself attempt to be empathetic and even compassionate. Put yourself in the shoes of people, if you possibly can imagine putting yourself in the shoes of people who have kidney disease. And if you were in their shoes, what would you want people to do? Would you want them to ignore your plight, or would you want them to come forward and be willing to get tested for you? In light of everything I've said, like I said, my story is atypical. Even with the bureaucratic red tape you have to go through, and you have apathetic kidney coordinators and all of that, most of the people in this arena, both the donor and the recipient kidney coordinators, are very good people that want to do everything they can to connect. If someone comes forward and is willing to donate as a living donor, connect a donor with the recipient, or get the process rolling, make it as smooth as possible so that the donor can donate to the recipient to save their life. Most people are not in this field, in the donation field and the transplant field. At most hospitals, from my experience, are good people. You get the apathetic people, but you also get the people who are very empathetic and compassionate, which is empathy in action. So it's like, just like this brother said, contact him, his wonderful organization. Me, again, I'm here to mentor anyone that needs mentorship, and I can tell you everything, all the nitty gritty of what I deal with, what you should prepare for, what you should avoid. I'm happy to do that, because there were some things they didn't cover. Like, when you donate a kidney, I'll just say this real quick. There's gas buildup, because the way the procedure takes place is it's not invasive. They make some small slits. They put a mechanism inside you, and they remove the kidney, which is a small bean-shaped organ, and they pump you up with gas. And if that gas is not removed, it will create a great deal of pain. And that's what I experienced. And they did not warn me about that. Georgetown, they're wonderful. They did not warn me about the gas pain. And one of the things they did was they got me out of the hospital too soon. The day after I donated, they discharged me from the hospital.
Wow. Now,
So
did
I
they
didn't
get
have
you up
time.
and walk you around and stuff? Usually they
No, they
get you
didn't.
up, walk you around to get the gas moving.
Yeah, you're supposed to have a bowel movement before you leave the hospital. They didn't even allow for that to happen. I was drugged up, and they asked me, "Are you ready to go?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. Who wants to stay in the hospital?" And I was feeling good at the time. What's your pain
Yeah.
level? I was probably on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 4. But
Yeah.
they released me, and as soon as they were very nice, Georgetown. They had an apartment for me to stay in for the 2 weeks that I had to rehab there. But as soon as I get there, all the pain was excruciating, and it lasted for days. So what I would tell you is, make sure you have, like, gas X. You have different things that
Yep.
can release the gas from your body, and make sure you insist on staying there for an extra day or two, because what they're trying to do is get the bed, make it available for someone else. And we get
Next
that.
person.
But you got to advocate for yourself. Don't do what I did and say, "Oh, yeah, I'm good." No, stay for an extra day or two. Make sure you get that bowel movement if you end up donating, because you don't want to deal with that pain. Um, but again, like I said, it was overall, I'm doing great. Thank God. Everything was smooth after that. Everything was smooth. Everything was smooth. Stay hydrated. I actually stay hydrated. When you have 2 kidneys, most time you don't feel dehydration. Well, I felt it, and I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe it was like I thought it was a parasite infection, because I was having consistent bowel movements. I had to voluntarily go to the emergency room, admit myself to the ER, because I wasn't sure what was going on. I just, but it was dehydration. They'd hook me up to an IV, saline solution, all that. So make sure, once you donate, stay hydrated. Don't do what
Stay
I did.
hydrated.
I wasn't used to. I didn't know what it was. And in the past, I'd had a parasite infection, which I got cured from, thank God. But this was like in 2013. But I thought maybe it was that, because I was having some of the same symptoms. So that's another thing. Make sure you stay hydrated. Make sure you get the gas out of your body. Advocate for yourself to stay in that hospital until, feel well enough without the drugs to leave, to be discharged. That's what I would say regarding that. And when I donated my liver, I did deal with vomiting, but it wasn't too bad other than that.
Now, let me ask you a question. After you donated the liver, after you donated the kidney, did you notice anything before your liver kind of returned itself and regenerated itself? Did it mess up your bowel movements? Did you have any like ailments that, like, after I eat, or I had to stay away from this, or was it like I had to switch from, you talked about changing your diet a little bit, but you didn't really tell me how you changed your diet or what you changed it from to, you know what I mean? Did you
Oh,
add
that
in
was
like more?
Yeah, that was before I donated my kidney. So because my protein levels were too high, I had to cut down on my meat and protein intake, so that my creatinine levels weren't as high. So
Gotcha.
I did
Okay,
that. I
that
did
makes
that.
sense.
Yeah, that was back in 2011.
And then
But my diet,
now you don't have any restrictions, or you don't have, you eat what you want, do what you want, go what you want, feel how you want.
no restrictions. And actually, a month after I donated my liver, I got COVID. And
Mm,
after like 10 days, I was unfazed. So I had no impact on my body, right? And because I was, again, if you're healthy enough to donate, you'll be healthy afterwards. Just keep eating healthy, exercise, get enough sleep, drink enough fluids, water in particular, and you're good.
I want to use the opportunity as well, Nick, real quick. You said you're in New York, and there's something that recently has just passed through legislation that I want our viewers to listen to before we end for the day. But the HEART Act. The HEART Act is an act that just got passed for New York residents. In New York, it used to be that a kidney patient that was looking for a kidney could only be listed at one center. So you get to be listed at one center in that state per person. And it really lowered the chances, right? Can you imagine the chances between one hospital and being listed at 4 hospitals? Like, that your chances are just 4 times that much greater to get a donor. So the HEART Act finally passed. And now, guess what? You can list at multiple locations in the state of New York and other states as well. So those things are really, really cool. Legislation is important. That's why the Enlisted Kidney Foundation, we go to DC, we fight for the legislation to change, because things like this, that one HEART Act allowed somebody the opportunity that they didn't have ever before. And the passing of that one act allowed them to qualify and opened up their umbrella and opened up their search radius for a kidney beyond what they've ever seen before. So I just want to make sure that people understand that legislation is getting passed. It takes organizations and people like ourselves to go and tell our stories and share what's going on with Nick, so that way people understand that this stuff can't always take place and that there is ailments on both sides. Oh, I'll just wait for a donor, right? And the donor's like, oh, I'll just give my kidney one day. It's really easy. And it's like, man, there's a little bit in between that we're missing. And we should be looking for organization, looking for mentorship to get us through that, to help us filter those parts of our life. Now, Nick, I want to let you have another moment to close us out. Anything, final words that you want to say to anybody that's listening? Go ahead, man.
Yeah, there is an organization that I'm a part of, that I've joined, called CODA, and we have created the Pass the End Kidney Deaths Act. So it's the End Kidney Deaths Act, and with the focus of it is a 10-year pilot program to provide a refundable tax credit of $10,000 per year for 5 years, so $50,000 total, in living kidney donors who donate a kidney to a stranger, which will go to those who have been waiting the longest on the kidney wait list. So this could potentially save up to 100,000 lives and $40 billion in taxes. That's what I'm
Now,
a
Nick,
part of.
Nick,
Yeah,
can
go
you
ahead.
tell
I'm
me
sorry.
that? Can you tell me if that's HR 2687, sir?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I appreciate y'all, man. I appreciate you, Nick. I appreciate you guys getting into this. HR 2687 is a bill that we fight for. It's a bill that we go to DC and lobby with. I'm very good friends with Elaine.
Yes.
We work very closely with her and to pass this bill. So, Nick, I love the fact that you're on this thing as well, because this is where we need to be, man, is in legislation, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully I contacted Elaine, or I got an email from the organization about going to advocate in January. Like January, February, March, and I chose January to go and advocate. So we'll see what happens with
Perfect.
that.
Maybe we'll
Yeah.
see you there, brother.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Maybe we'll see you there. Absolutely, man. Well, thanks again, Nick, for showing up and showing out, sharing your story with us. I know that it was hard, man. It was hard to stay motivated. It was hard to stay encouraged over those 10 years, but you saved 2 lives, Nick. And that's amazing, man. You kept your faith through the whole thing. You kept your motivation through the whole thing. And at the end of the day, look where we're at. You're on the other side of this, and you're able to tell the world how to go and save somebody else's life. You guys, I want to thank you for listening. If you made it this far, you're truly amazing. Thank you so much for tuning into the FliterLIFE podcast. Feel free to go over to our Patreon account and sign up for our FliterLIFE membership. There's where we get that's where all the real work lives there, Nick. That's where everything lives, man, at our FliterLIFE membership on Patreon. So thank the guest. I appreciate everybody for showing up, and we'll see you on the next episode of the FliterLIFE podcast.